What are some of the changes you've seen from today's cartels to, say early 2000s? Like, what are some of the big significant things that have made them stronger and more powerful?
Oh man, they've changed a lot. I think still by the 2000s, they still were for the most part trafficking drugs. That was the business, right? The business is okay, we're gonna traffic drugs because they have a strong value in the US and we can produce them, manufacture them, and package them on this side of the border, just like a regular maquiladora, like a regular factory,
Yeah.
right? Um, but then eventually they started getting into other stuff. They started noticing how getting into the political system pays off, right? They start bribing politicians. The politicians still on top. They bribe them. They hand it over contracts, right? Let's say, hey, we want to make money out of your new presidency, or you're a new governor. If we help you win, you'll give us all the contracts to build hospitals, highways, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where we're going to be making huge money. That started happening. Then they started getting into natural resources, right? Monopolizing natural resources to a point where today, a faction of the Sinaloa cartel in Chihuahua, one of the driest regions in northern Mexico, it's controlling creeks, rivers, lakes. They basically own water right now in Chihuahua,
Jeez.
which is it's mind blowing. It's dangerous. So I think right now they're mostly criminal enterprises that are being empowered by their own criminal insurgencies, right? They don't have sicarios anymore. They do have these fucking insurgencies where they armed to the teeth. You've seen them with several miniguns, RPGs, all these sorts of stuff, and new techniques, right? They're using night vision to ambush people at night, drones, like these drones that are dropping bombs into like
Yeah.
enemies, not all this kind of stuff, which is like, dude, in the 2000s, they were carrying AK-47s and their sombreros and trafficking drugs. And if you fucked up with the laws, they're going to get you. Probably they were kidnapping, extorting some of them, trying to make a buck. But now they're doing also, now they are calling the shots. It's not the politician who's now like, okay, I'll allow you to operate if you pay me some part of this business. Now it's the other way around. They'll be like, okay, you want to run for mayor, you want to run for governor, okay, you pay us and we'll make your campaign, and then you're gonna do what we are telling you to do. These guys are on top, man. Now it's crazy.
Yeah. When you talk about their guns and their firepower, one question I have is where have you found out where they're getting those from? And the other question to that is like, who's training them how to use it?
For the most part, they're getting these guns from the U.S. manufacturers. It's basically an ant trafficking. Little by little, they start getting huge amounts of firepower. When you're talking about like stuff like miniguns, which are not easy or not cheap, they also set up middlemen that they don't even know what the fuck they're doing. They're like, I'm just selling these things to another gringo here in Dallas, which are components, not the whole minigun, right? So they don't even know what they're building. Then this guy who knows exactly what he's doing, he starts building up the miniguns, shipping them south and charging. He starts building stuff. I was reading the other day this indictment for a guy named Alex who didn't know what the fuck he was really doing. He was just selling parts to a bigger, arms seller in Texas. And this bigger arms seller was putting together miniguns, several miniguns, at least 20, for around 14 to 16K each, and then selling them for 250K to Mexican drug cartels.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I was gonna
yeah,
say
so
16. Yeah, if it costs them about 16 to make, interesting. Damn, some 200, absolutely.
yeah, he was making big bucks. And though, so US intelligence say on that report I read said that there are at least 20 miniguns in the hands of criminal organizations in Mexico recently trafficked.
Jeez, right.
So that this is how they're getting their hands on all of this stuff. Now, another good way to get a hand on RPGs or these kind of like most difficult stuff to hide across the border is through the southern border in Mexico, through Chiapas and Guatemala, which is a very open, wide border. No one's really looking. No one's really like there to know what's being trafficked. from that side of the border. So they get them, some of them from Russia, some of them from Middle East, transport them to Colombia, then to Colombia all the way up through the southern border. There's also a lot of corruption within the Mexican military where they say, well, we acquired all these explosives and all of a sudden we lost track of them. So who knows where they are, right?
Yeah, I think there's one of the countries right now, I'm not sure if it was Venezuela or something, is missing a ton of firearms right now. And
pretty sure that it's now in Michoacan or Jalisco.
Right. Who's training them? Is there any kind of intel on who's training them? I'll tell you from my experience of someone who is highly trained at some point in my life, they don't look technically and tactically sound like a special operations military. So I don't see that level of experience yet. Maybe when the Zetas originally came out, they looked probably more like that. Right now, it seems like it's kind of changed. It's more like the more people with firepower still creates, a security sense and still creates chaos. So it doesn't look like they're highly trained individuals. They just look like they have high firepower and able to get their hands on it. Which still is a threat.
Absolutely, man. That's exactly what is happening. Exactly what you're saying. There have been some videos that I've come to see where you can see those guys are trained. You know how they pick up their arms. You know how their body language, how they're breaking inside a house. With this crust kind of thing. What trained people does. But that's only a few, and it's probably just the guys who are, taking care of the security of like a main target, El Mencho, El Mayo, right? Like these guys, it's not widespread, that knowledge for the most part. It's just little like small kids, teenagers, whatever, that they got hands on their like, just take these AK, take these whatever. And in case you need to use it, just fucking go and like blast them, right? Yeah. And they use them like that, but they're not trained. I also watched this clip the other day of these guys belonging to the Salazar cartel in Sonora, right across Arizona. And they were clearing a house. They were after a target. But you could see how they're clearing houses, clearing vehicles, like with special operators techniques. I mean, they were like smashing windows with the back of the boom, and the boom opening the car. Then another guy went in on the other side of the car. They enter the house on a crossed. This kind of thing they do. They're clearing up the second floor, and they're like information. They're always on comms, like communicating with each other. And one of the guys had a patch that said FES, which is the Fuerzas Especiales. I can't remember the S, but it's basically Mexican elite soldiers, it's a very elite, secret kind of like police within the Mexican military. So this guy was very probably the one training his own team, and he was probably at one point was part of this elite group of Mexican military. We're talking these they're probably a handful of these very well-trained guys. For the rest, for the most part, all the rest of the sicarios are really just people with high power, but they don't even know how to use it. Sometimes you'll see guys on a 22, which is basically a low caliber gun, but they have this scope and night vision and whatever. So you see why would you need a scope of this 22, But it's just for them to look like the baddest MFs around. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I would love to see that video if you have access to it, man. That'd be interesting to kind of watch and see their skills. Yeah, that's kind of what I've seen. Like just seeing a lot of the footage and going out there and like really finding some of the stuff online. It's what it felt like. It felt like young men take those jobs because it pays good money for them, and they'll shoot anything or whatever they're told to do. I haven't seen necessarily a really high quality, tactical sense at the moment, but I believe you're probably correct in the sense of like the higher ups, the guys, the big dogs who manage these organizations probably do have some well-trained individuals working for them. So in the sense of protection.
Exactly. Yeah.
Crazy times. I've seen 50 cals. I've seen all kinds of stuff online, what they have.
Yeah. These armored vehicles and monstros. Also, they're getting better and more sophisticated. They're at the beginning it was just like a F-150 with a bunch of metal around. Metal around. But now they're getting more sophisticated on their own monsters, right? Like they're using different material, different stuff, and
it's starting to look like early tactical vehicles in the military overseas. Like it's starting to, like it's definitely starting. I'm curious to see how much they are pulling from the war footage and some of the, you know, the terrorist kind of ISIS videos and stuff like that, and how much they're using for their own tactics. It just seems, sometimes it seems very similar in like maybe years later, kind of dated, but still similar.
Yeah, I think I mean, since they are very resilient criminal organizations, and the internet has changed the game for everyone. So they're
Yeah, right,
watching all
exactly.
the time footage from Ukraine, from no sé qué, from this side and the other. And they're kind of like testing, right? They don't have anything to lose. They're just like, oh, what if we strap these kind of like drone that is used to, I don't know, spray crops, which is a bigger drone? What if we strap it with a night vision camera and some released like device, so we
Yeah.
can like release a bomb,
Yeah,
whatever. So they're like,
something, right? Something they probably saw off of the Ukraine-Russian war, and then it
yeah,
gave them an idea. I know
and
that
then they
for a
start
fact that,
experimenting it.
yep, I know for a fact there's a lot of use right now of drones in the Mexican side, and not so much to deliver packages per se, but using for, like you said, for for videoing, surveillance, but as well as I've heard they are using it to drop bombs on their own people, which is like, or that's insane. That's a huge escalation of skill set.
Exactly, the whole propaganda, because I mean, like the Cartel Jalisco, right? In Michoacán, they have their own unit called Operadores Especiales del Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación, like drone operators of CJNGs. And that's a patch they use. That's the
Oh
way
my
they identify
goodness.
themselves. They're like a specific unit of drone operators. So yeah, they're learning, man. They're learning and they're experimenting. And if they they're not stopped, they're just gonna get better and better.